Well, happy early Halloween, everybody. Welcome to the Critics Corner Halloween edition. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here with my colleague, friend, and movie lover, Mr. David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. How are you doing today, David?
I am doing well, Andy. Happy Halloween.
Terrible intro for the day, but happy Halloween, Andy.
We are here today doing our favorite movies for Halloween, what you and I like, and some of them I grew up with, and some of them you grew up with, and just, kind of near and dear classics that kind of span several decades here.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Halloween is always an interesting time, right, Andy? You're getting into the horror, the thriller, the slashers, the monster movies, just everything that kind of makes your skin crawl.
Yeah.
And I love doing lists like this because it kind of makes me, just look back on the movies I appreciate the most, the movies that have scared me the most, captivated me the most, interesting me the most. It's really fun to review through these.
Well, I will say Hubie Halloween is not on this list at all.
Hubie Halloween is definitely not on this list. Good. That movie was, if I was watching the movie, my reaction to that movie would be the horror movie. That's what it is. It's the movie monster there.
Your rage is priceless there.
It's authentic, brother. It's authentic. Just to kind of start things off here, Andy, we are going to start with my fifth favorite horror movie of all time. It is a 1991 psychological horror film. I believe if it's not one of the few horror films to win Best Picture, it may be the only one to win Best Picture. It is Silence of the Lambs.
I forgot about that one, actually.
Yeah, brother, it's a classic, man. Jodie Foster stars as a Clarice Starling, a FBI agent assigned to track down a serial killer. She enlists in the help of one Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, a cannibal who helps her get into the mind of the madman she's trying to hunt. And this is a deeply chilling film, Andy. It's one of the few where it scares you not because of the content on screen. I mean, the content on screen is definitely terrifying. But one thing that's particularly unsettling about this film is that everything you see in there is completely practical. You can totally see a cannibal killer out there existing, like Hannibal Lecter. You can see a crazed serial killer like Buffalo Bill existing. And yeah, as far as the FBI goes, they've tracked down killers a lot like the antagonists in this movie. Jonathan Demme kind of guides Jodie Foster through this very tumultuous and really psychologically absorbing thriller. Anthony Hopkins is downright chilling as Hannibal Lecter. He definitely deserved the Best Acting Oscar for this movie, as did Jodie Foster. And the movie just does a great job just taking a deep dive into the psychology and the thinking of these really twisted murderers. Like, it's very intriguing and very absorbing.
I ate his liver with fava beans.
Oh, God! Don't do that ever again! Oh, my God! I just got goosebumps for that. Jamie. But yeah, you get it. I mean, it's a killer, man. Quite literally.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. I've forgotten about that, but I'm gonna have to go watch that again. Yeah, especially the scene where he wears the skin mask to escape. Yeah.
Oh God, that was such a great scene. It was so nerve-wracking, and even the whole monologue where Jodie Foster was talking about, the slaughtering of the lambs on her home ranch. Like, there's just so many scenes.
Well, and just something that's kind of ironically funny. The guy who plays Buffalo Bill, the serial killer, he went and played Captain Leland Stoudemire in the television show Monk.
Oh God.
That's kind of funny.
I could totally see that. I didn't remember that, but yeah, you just
You know,
reminded.
I read that Jodie Foster was so freaked out by the role that they offered her a chance to do like another sequel to it, that she just turned it down because she didn't want to be handle the stress with that.
Yeah, and I completely relate to that. You are right. She skipped over taking it on for the Ridley Scott sequel, Hannibal. But good golly, and I think that fear, that that tension, that anxiety she felt, that was also reflected in her performance. And it was great seeing her work. It was great seeing Anthony Hopkins' work. It was great seeing Jonathan Demme work. This is a very, very well crafted horror film.
Well, the movie that I chose for my number 5 is I love it. It's funny. It's it has demons, evil, a person that slays evil. It's pretty freaking awesome. Army of Darkness, starring Bruce Campbell, directed by Sam Raimi. It's part of the Evil Dead series, which if you haven't watched Evil Dead, you need to watch Evil Dead because it's pretty awesome. They also did a television show about it a few years ago as well. So to kind of pick up where the last movie left off. If you haven't seen it, go get a copy. It's basically you have the main character. It's about a sarcastic store clerk who's accidentally transported back to 1300 AD, where he must retrieve the Necronomicon, which is the Book of the Dead, and battle the army of the dead so he can return home and set the present right. And he's played by Bruce Campbell, who plays Ash. Has some of the greatest lines ever in cinema in that movie. This is my boomstick.
I was going to say. Yeah, man. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell is a match made in heaven. They always have been. Sadly, I've never seen Army of Darkness. It's one of those I need to get to.
Yeah, you need to watch it.
I did see the original Evil Dead. The original Evil Dead was very tense and anxiety filled, and
this is a little bit way more easygoing in a respect, but it still has the Evil Dead flavor to it. There's a lot more lighthearted moments in this film.
I was gonna ask if it was a little more lighthearted, because there's one scene in the original Evil Dead I hated in particular, and I'm not going into it in depth here, but the tree scene. The tree scene was horrific. Hated that scene with a passion.
In this movie, he gets transported back in time with his car. So to fight the army of the dead, they soup up his it was an Oldsmobile to fight the Evil Dead. It has this big huge blade on it, and that's awesome. It's greatness. It's one of these movies that just it makes you smile, and it's scary, but it's good, and it's like, why didn't I watch this before? And Bruce Campbell, I'm sorry, he's one of these actors that he's a fun actor. And I've met him in person at Comic-Con. I've gotten to speak with him. Really neat dude. And he is just like he is, on screen as he, when you meet him in person. And most people know Bruce recently from his, big role in like Burn Notice that was on cable, where he played Sam Axe. But a lot of people know him from that. But I mean, another great Bruce Campbell movie is he plays an Elvis impersonator, which is in a nursing home, which is awesome.
Yeah, man.
I just love Bruce Campbell. I'm sorry.
Bruce has a lot of charisma, man. He is kind of
I have a man crush on him. So.
Totally respected, totally understandable. Yeah, love Bruce Campbell, love Sam Raimi. God knows I love his Spider-Man movies. Army of Darkness is definitely one I'll have to check out very soon.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Moving on to my number 4 is a 1975 film. It's not horror in the typical sense. It doesn't have a mass murderer or killer or any kind of zombies or any supernatural threat, but it does have a very realistic threat, has a very practical threat, has a very natural threat, and that to me makes this movie even more anxious. And that is Steven Spielberg's 1975 classic Jaws, starring Roy Schneider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss as a group, as a trio who venture out to sea to hunt this monstrous shark that is terrorizing the town. And man, Andy, this scene, it fills you with so much tension, and part of it is by accident. One notable thing about this movie that makes it kind of funny is the shark, which Steven Spielberg nicknamed Bruce. The shark kept breaking down on everybody. They had a production schedule to stick to, so Steven Spielberg is like, okay, let's film from the perspective of the shark underwater. And that, in combination with John Williams' haunting score, the very simple melody and notes, bottom, 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 it really gives you the sense that something like a predator is on the hunt. And you see his helpless victims laid in front of him, and you're grasping your seat and your hair, and you're screaming at everybody to get out, but they don't. I tell you, man, this movie will make you stick to the shallow side of the ocean, hands down.
My favorite scene in that movie has nothing to do with the shark itself, but about sharks. One of the main characters in the movie, Quint, who's the captain of this fishing boat that Brody, who's the local sheriff, played by Roy Schneider, hires to go out and hunt this shark. Well, Brody and Hopper, who's played by Richard Dreyfuss, who's a shark expert from like an oceanographic institute or something, they're sitting around the kitchen table in the galley, and Clint tells him the story about the U.S. Indianapolis and the shark attacks that ate most of the crew after the ship was sunk by the Japanese, which happened during World War II. And turns out that Quint was a member of the Indianapolis crew, for the story in Jaws. And just hearing him recall those details about what happened to him, his fellow sailors, that just chills me with the details he gives out in that moment there.
It is a great monologue for sure, Andy. It's very haunting. It's very poetic. It's very tragic. You feel this character coming from a very vulnerable and raw place, and you feel like it's something that it has kind of indented his life, so to speak. And really, all of the characters in this movie are very well done. I mean, obviously, you mentioned Robert Shaw, Roy Schneider, Richard Dreyfuss. It's not just that the movie, from a technical standpoint, does a good job with setting up the threat of the shark, because it definitely does. But you also get invested in these characters. They have great personalities. They have great chemistry with each other. They have a great bond. You understand what's at stake for them personally. And through your investment in them, you care more about them, and it makes you even more engaged with their survival. I can't tell you how many horror movies I've seen where I'm just like, okay, I want that person to die. I want that person to die. I want that person. You just don't care. They're all, none of the characters in Jaws are expandable, Andy. And that's one of the many gifts that Steven Spielberg gives us through Jaws.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree. I guess my number 4 movie is a little bit newer. It actually came out last year in 2019 when we all could go to the theater.
Each.
It's a film by the name of Brightburn, which I thought was just a tremendous movie when it came out. I was enthralled by it's basically the dark version of Superman, They don't say it's Superman, but it's Superman.
No, Superman.
You know it's Superman. And this child who is, supposedly, you know, adopted by, the family who is, supposed to be Ma and Pa Kent, he's just evil. And the stuff he does that he wreaks havoc on them is just wow. It was a movie I wasn't expecting to come out, and I'm really not a huge fan of horror movies, but man, it was so well written. Just how he would kill people. I was impressed. I didn't know people could die in that kind of a manner.
Yeah, man, the movie definitely does get very creative with its deaths. And on that note, obviously the kid in that movie is amazing. Really, all the actors in that movie are very good. And I definitely like the subversion of the Superman and superhero genre, how it kind of flips the script on its head. Instead of making it a superhero movie, it's a super horror movie. You don't really see many of those nowadays. So it's fun to see directors do something different on that front. My only thing, the only thing I would change in the movie is that there's a recurring thing throughout the movie where, whenever the kid landed on this earth, he came here with this crystal, this ship, and the ship kept feeding thoughts into his head. I felt like it would have been more organic and it would have been more personable if he just naturally turned evil rather than this spaceship, twisting his
thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, but the movie's still very well done. I mean, regardless of whether you got it through that way or another, the kid is still a very good actor. The movie is very thrilling. It's very scary. And it does a good job taking the Superman mythos and twisting it like silly putty.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
For sure. So my number 3 is a Stephen King classic. Though interestingly enough, Stephen King didn't like this adaptation as much as others did. It is the classic Stanley Kubrick film, The Shining. The movie stars Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance, a writer who goes to this hotel during the wintertime with his family to kind of be secluded and focus on his writing. But while they're there, the family gets haunted by these different spirits that kind of terrorize each of the individual family members. As the movie goes on, they all descend into a downward spiral of madness and mistrust, and it ends in a very debauchery sort of way. And man, Andy, this this movie just sets your nerves on edge. I mean, now, you even think about it, there's not even a lot of deaths in this movie. Like, compared to other horror movies, the death count in this movie is not very high, but the movie just fills you with anxiety. It fills you with that sense of loneliness, that sense of isolation, that seclusion that can really drive people mad.
And you have that sense of dread there too. I mean,
yeah, dude, it's so atmospheric and it's so haunting and it's so very well done. Stanley Kubrick is a great director in there. He really sets his cast members on edge to where you feel like they accurately portray that on screen. Jack Nicholson is amazing in this movie. Easily one of his most defining roles of all time.
One of his most iconic roles, I would say, too.
Exactly.
If you haven't seen The Shining, everybody knows the line, "Here's Johnny."
Yeah, exactly, man.
What's interesting about that is before Jack became an actor, he was actually a volunteer fireman. And they had to tell him to stop. When he's using the axe on the door, they had to tell him to stop doing it so fast. Because as a volunteer fireman, he knew how to bust open a door really, really fast.
Dude, can you imagine the log of crap that his wife would have to eat if he actually broke down that door effectively like you just described? Oh, that'd be so bad. That would be so bloody.
Well, on a related note, if you've seen The Shining, watch the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where they mimic The Shining. Really funny. I'm just putting that out there.
Dude, a really funny part as well. I actually visited the Stanley Hotel, the hotel that Stephen King stayed at whenever he got inspired to write The Shining. And one, very creepy. Looks almost exactly like the hotel in this movie. But two, there's one part where I actually broke away from the group I was with. There was an attic where it was kind of locked off. People couldn't go up there. I snuck up there. And you get up and the door is bolted up. So obviously I couldn't get in, but I pulled up my phone and I looked at, the door. It had scribbled on there, red rum. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I don't care if it's a joke. I don't want to find out.
Yeah, that movie still gives me the chills. And I've
It really does, dude.
times. Okay, well, for my number 3, I picked the 1999, in my opinion, classic, The Sixth Sense, with Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment. It was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, when he'd actually make really good movies.
Yeah.
Like Lady in the Water, which is a rant for another day. But when I saw this movie, this was one movie that my parents would absolutely not let me see, and I had to go over to a friend's house and watch this, and I didn't tell them about it for years because it's too scary. You don't need to. We don't watch that stuff in this house. I'm like, I'm gonna go see this movie. It makes you saying stuff like that to kids sometimes makes you even want to go do it even more. And I wanted to go see this movie, and it was it was incredible. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil what happens. But it's basically a boy who communicates with spirits, and a psychologist is helping him through to help him manage that or get through that or whatever. And he's having sessions with this kid.
Yeah, for sure, man. This was definitely one of. Sorry, what?
Extremely creepy.
Yeah, man, it is very creepy. It is very unsettling. It's a slow burn, really. But the emphasis on that is burn. You do feel the tension and the apprehension throughout this movie. And M. Night Shyamalan, this really is one of his better films. I would say like top 2 at the very least. The movie is definitely very well paced. Haley Joel Osment is a great lead in this movie, just as much as Bruce Willis. They have a great chemistry with each other. But
1999 was back when Bruce Willis still had hair.
Yeah, pretty much. But another thing I really liked about this movie, Andy, not just is it that it's scary and it's unsettling, it's also very emotional. Like there's a really profound family dynamic in this movie, and there's a very profound, just this theme of connections and relationships and grief and the people we long to connect with even after they've passed. It's very thought-provoking, and I do like the reflection this movie gives you.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the other good M. Night Shyamalan night movies are, I would say, the 2016 movie Split, which is really good. So see that.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's a very good horror type movie. So if you're looking for another M. Night Shyamalan movie that is pretty decent, I recommend that.
I think I'm one of the few that hate Split with a passion.
Oh, wow.
Not because it isn't well done. God knows James McAvoy is amazing in the movie.
Well,
how he got skipped over for an Oscar nomination is ridiculous. Huh?
I'd also recommend Signs as well.
Signs and Sixth Sense is neck and neck for me, man. I go back and forth on which one of those is actually my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. Yeah. God knows he desperately needs a return to form to go back to that era of Shyamalanizations. But going off of that, my number 2 pick for favorite horror movie of all time, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised this is number 2, It is the Alfred Hitchcock classic Psycho with the whole you know? This movie features a loaded cast, including Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vera Miles, and it's don't want to spoil it. There is a girl on the run. She stays in a motel. Something very eventful happens at the motel, and this basically becomes a manhunt movie for a particular person of interest. I'm trying very hard not to spoil it, but this is a very well done movie, Andy, and it's done so well for several reasons. One, Alfred Hitchcock, as always, is a master. I mean, he knows what to focus on in each scene that he's watching. He knows what emotions to pull from us. He knows how the sound effects should work, the music, the score from Bernard Herrmann is especially fitting. But through the first act of this movie, he throws a curveball at you. Because up until now, you think the movie is about a particular character, but then he switches it, does a complete 180 on the structure of this film, and from then forward, all expectations are out the window. I mean, everything. You have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen to who's going to die, what's going to happen to whoever. You have no idea. And that drives up the apprehension of this movie to like the 10th degree. Obviously, there's that iconic shower scene in this movie, but really, there's just so many chilling moments in this movie. I think that's the best way to describe this movie is chilling. You will have a very hard time sleeping after watching this movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the one thing I will say, I was creeped out about it when I was a kid. Another movie that, my parents said you can go see. So went and watched that, on the DL there. But after covering Cops in Court for the paper for many, many years, it creeps me out even more because I've encountered people that potentially are like this in trials that are, they're around, and it plays on that fear that, it has that realistic aspect to it that there are creepy people like this, like Ted Bundy, that embody this. And, I think that's why I think it's really a great scary movie for Halloween. I mean, it has that sense of realism to it.
It's very unsettling, dude.
That was actually my number one pick for this.
Yeah, really, it's number one. I can't say I disagree with you. It would have been if it wasn't for one other pick for me, but I'll let you continue.
Well, my second one you've already talked about, which was my second pick was The Shining, but right next to it, I would have to say, and it came into kind of a close tie with it, would be the 1954 classic Rear Window, which is a really good movie. It's one of the movies Alfred Hitchcock is known for. You have Jimmy Stewart in that, who is phenomenal. I mean, you have Grace Kelly. I mean, oh my gosh, Grace Kelly, total knockout babe, and just a phenomenal actress.
She absolutely is. Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window, his expressions make everything. Like a paraplegic sitting in an apartment, just creeping out the window. His expressions, the terror on his face, makes so much of this movie, and I definitely don't think it could have done as well if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, basically the whole premise of the film is Jimmy Stewart is this newspaper photographer who breaks both his legs covering an assignment at a auto racing event, and he is laying up in his house, and his girlfriend Lisa is taking care of him. So he's got nothing else better to do throughout the day. This is pre-Netflix, Amazon. He's got nothing else better to do than listen to the radio and spy on his neighbors, essentially, and what's going on in the neighborhood. And he basically witnesses a murder in the apartment complex across the way from him. So he's trying to find out what happened. And that's basically the whole premise of the film, where, and basically the killer kind of comes after him. Phenomenal movie, great suspense in this. And the interesting fact about this, they actually did a remake of this film for TV in 1998 with Christopher Reeve. It was one of the few roles that Christopher Reeve did after he got paralyzed. And he played Jimmy Stewart's role as the man looking out the window. And it was actually really well done, actually. But I like the 54 version a little bit better, you know. But either one, if you get the chance to see them, they're both good.
Yeah, you can't beat the 1954 version. I don't think anyone can beat Alfred Hitchcock. Like, people have tried to remake Psycho, and those remakes have failed. So I think it's just kind of his indentation. You know, if you got the Alfred Hitchcock stamp of approval, you're not going to be outdone anytime soon.
Yeah, but it was one of the few movies that Christopher Reeve did after he was injured, and it was very commendable for him. And one thing I read about his performance in that movie, there's one scene where his air tube actually gets yanked out, and they actually physically did that on camera to make it more realistic. He wanted to do that.
Wow, that's terrifying. And finally, Andy, my number one pick. I know that you mentioned your number one pick was Psycho. Mine is oddly appropriate for this month we're in. It is the 1978 slasher flick Halloween by John Carpenter. Obviously stars Jamie Lee Curtis in one of her earliest roles. Basically, a serial killer breaks out of prison. He goes on a rampage in the town, and it's up to a handful of teenagers to stop him. And the formula sounds pretty generic now, Andy. I mean, God knows there's been so many copycats since then. But this movie was very, very well done for its time. Not just for the very eerie score John Carpenter made. Obviously, this tense and quick-paced kind of melody that makes you feel like you're being stalked down a hallway. But he also utilizes Michael Myers, the main, antagonist of the series. He does a really good job obscuring him and utilizing him in very small sleight of hand moments that really sends chills down your spine. It's interesting. There's not really a whole lot of blood in this movie. There's body counts in here for sure, but really, most of the movie is just Michael Myers standing a little bit out of frame, or hiding behind an object, or the camera focusing on a particular space to make you feel like he's there. It's very creepy. It's very on edge. It makes you feel like you're being followed. This sticks up the neck in your hair like no movie ever has, Andy. It's easily one of my favorite horror exercises of all time.
No, it's a great movie, and I say the original is probably the best one out of the bunch. I mean, they do like Halloween H2O and just all these other weird sequels that are like, you can't top a classic, just But I would say, like I said, we talked about Psycho, which is my number one. I would say I have a couple honorable mentions, and we don't have to go into them, but I'm going to name them just for, I like them. So, meh. I would say Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, which is a great animated film, which is awesome. Jack Skellington, awesome stuff. I have to go with the classic, The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because, who doesn't like Charlie Brown? And I'm mad that Apple TV is having that on Apple TV only and not broadcast, but I do have a DVD of it at home. I'll watch that, but that upsets me.
Thank God, brother.
My last honorable mention would be Young Frankenstein, which has the memorable Peter Boyle in it, Gene Wilder. Everybody knows Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond as Frank Barone. It's directed by the awesome creative genius Mel Brooks. I love Mel Brooks. He's awesome. It's basically an American grandson of the infamous scientist Dr. Frank's son, basically struggling to prove that his grandfather wasn't insane. He's basically invited out to Transylvania, where he discovers the process of reanimating the body, and it's awesome. It's a great movie.
It is. It's definitely a Halloween classic, Andy. And just to very briefly go over my honorable mentions as well. Obviously, the original Alien with Sigourney Weaver, not just a great science fiction movie, a very tense and anxiety-filled thriller. Scream, which kind of similar to Breitbart, is a great subversion and homage to the horror genre. It, the remake, Bill Skarsgård is a revelation as Pennywise the Clown. The Conjuring, a return to form for Saw director James Wan, and then Get Out, which is Jordan Peele's writer-director debut. You said it earlier, Andy, off of this. You've said it earlier, Andy, off of this chat. There's a lot of great horror movies that came out throughout cinematic history, and whittling it down to just 5 is impossible.
Oh yeah. That's why I included the other ones in there, because go and watch that. Don't watch Hubie Halloween, because that's horrible, very bad. It'll rot your brain. Any one of these would make for a great spooky night at home. Get a bowl of popcorn, get some candy going on, turn down the lights, get something nice to drink, and maybe invite a friend over. It'll make for a good night.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to do it for this spooky edition of the Critics Corner here. So if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or that you want to see reviewed here, or just anything you'd want to talk about just in general about movies, give us an email. They'll be listed in the credits below. So
cool.
Y'all have a good and safe Halloween.
Yeah, you too, Andy. Have a happy and safe Halloween. Woo! Awesome.